Live united.
Live united.
Live united.
Live united.
Live united.
Live united.
Vivimos juntos.
We live united.
We live united. I live united.
Live united.
Welcome back to a special edition of Live United as we discuss early childhood education at United Way's Coffee and Community event. So join us for part 2 of our show as several education leaders explore healthy learning and development challenges facing Georgia's families.
And thank you for taking seriously my invitation to show your passion.
Right. Between Comer and I, we're average on passion.
We are so privileged to have all of you join us. So let's build a little bit on the importance of school readiness. So Gail and Earl, would you share with us, in terms of school readiness, our preschool programs cannot do the work alone. So what do you think the role of the community, social agencies, youth organizations, parents, businesses should have in support of the idea of young children learning to read?
Go ahead, Gail.
Right. Well, one of the things that we discovered, it really takes this broad base of partners to do this work. So it takes parents, and I really want us to all remember that parents are a kid's first teacher and the best advocate. So we've got to get parents in the big tent. It takes high-performing organizations to deliver high-quality early learning. It takes the community. We've got to get the community really rallying behind this issue. And it takes funders to really support doing high-quality early learning. And the one thing that we've actually done, I was so glad that Elaine was honored today, we've actually been trying to test all this out in a set of neighborhoods that are about 5 miles from here in southwest Atlanta near Turner Field. We've actually built a partnership that's got 22 partners. All those groups of people I talked about. It's got Active Parent Leadership Council. It's got high-performing organizations that come in. We've got Jumpstart bringing 20 Georgia State University students that work 2 days a week with the kids, and those kids, by the way, who are the choir, are the kids that are part of this learning complex. We've got organizations, Rollins Center has been training the teachers how to teach early literacy and learning. United Way has been supporting us with all kinds of wonderful enrichment activities. And we've got, and this learning complex is actually kids start at 6 weeks and go all the way through 5th grade. And it's actually a traditional APS school, Dunbar Elementary. You got to meet this morning Karen Brown Collier, who's an amazing principal. So we've actually been testing this notion about putting together this broad base. And I want you to know, the good news is that the kids who've actually been part of this learning complex, the little ones, that their test scores, and we're analyzing this data independently. We're doing independent assessments so you can take this data to the bank. I guess that's a good thing these days. The kids have made an 86% improvement from the first time they were tested to their most recent test. 86% improvement. This actually is how I'm going to be talking about this Mission Possible. If you actually do this and create the most comprehensive, high-quality learning, these kids can actually be successful readers by 3rd grade.
Thank you, Gail.
I mean, I think we could do it if we had ethical leadership. So since we never will, I'll stop talking. That's not fair.
Okay.
Seriously, ethical leadership, right? All the data says that you get a 10% return. James Heckman, right, Nobel laureate, says you get a 10% return on investing in a child early. But we lack ethical leadership. We lack the will right now to push. Because if we had that will, you wouldn't have, you think teachers have it bad? What do childcare workers have it like, right? We're not demonstrating through our actions that really we know that the most important thing we can do is invest in our children. We're not acting like a country or a community that's saying, by the way, we can look at our future by looking at our children. We can understand our future 20 years from now by looking at where our children are today. So we would have to completely switch how we do things. And that may be uncomfortable or unpopular, but I really think the country lacks ethical leadership to do the right thing, despite the fact that there may not be a huge lobby behind it, because children generally don't have a voice of lobby for them.
Thank you, Earl. And I'm just thinking, I've already asked for forgiveness earlier this morning. I'm just thinking, so I'm going to go off script for just a second. David, I'll be fine. But I want you all to scan the room. And since this is the Women's Leadership Council, we have an audience of movers and shakers and women who are mothers, aunts, sisters, who are listening to this issue. And there is nothing more powerful than a group of determined women when they hear an issue that they want to get something done. So I just thought I would share that.
Excellent. I'm in the right place.
I love my men, and we're so glad that you're here. Our next question, Errol, for you. Research spanning 100 years has proven that children lose ground academically when they are out of school for summer. The problem particularly is acute for low-income children. The research shows that they lose an average of 2 months or more in reading achievement in the summer, which slows their progress towards third grade reading proficiency. What are some specific suggestions being proposed to impact the challenges of summer learning loss for young children that you're addressing?
Oh, that's an excellent question, which I should point out to people who are ever answering questions. This is what you say when you have no idea what the answer is. We are experimenting right now with calendars. Because we let the kids out in the summer so they can help us with our crops, since we all need to we all need to bring in the crops in the summertime. Either that, or we need them to work at Six Flags. But we are experimenting. I mentioned before that we had year-round calendars which have shorter breaks, and again, that's not necessarily a calendar that works for everyone, and we will never find a calendar that works for everyone. But what we are trying to do is introduce, and we are probably going to propose it next month, a different calendar with shorter breaks, and we will use those shorter breaks for remediation and programming within those breaks for those who need it as well, because as I said earlier, what we see is a fabulous loss in literacy, but not so much in mathematics, interestingly enough. And so we are tailoring programs to do that now, and this is still under debate, but you are correct. It's an issue that we have to address, and we are addressing it. And the point Earl made about ethical leadership, I think, is an excellent one. I spent a lot of years in front of the legislature suggesting to them why they should invest more in education than in prisons, and it sort of fell on deaf ears, and I think building prisons in rural areas is sometimes viewed as an economic development exercise as well, unfortunately. And so then I had a new tactic which says, you love revenue, so instead of showing incarceration rates by educational level, which are obvious, I flipped it and showed how much taxes people paid by education rates. And so I suggested to them, if you wanted to be the people who didn't raise taxes but got more revenue, just invest more in education, and you'll get more tax revenue. That didn't work either.
But it's a good point.
At least I tried both sides of the argument. But on the issue of the summer, we are working that issue. It is critical to us.
Thank you. For Comer, or if any of you would like to respond, despite the abundance of electronic communication bombarding children today, the television to video to the internet, books still play an important role in school readiness and early grade literacy. So what do you share with our audience about the impact of availability or lack of books in young children's lives?
Well, my favorite book is To Kill a Mockingbird, and Scout learned to read on the lap of Atticus, and there is a famous quote that said, children learn to read on the laps of their parents. And parents aren't being given the opportunity to do that. Again, the demands on parents because of a system, particularly in the South, that hasn't given access to quality education to parents, repeats this cycle over and over again. And we not only need to have access to books, but know what to do with books for parents. And we have a video out right now. It's free, so I'm not plugging, I'm not selling anything, where the narrator is one of our children from the speech school, Justin, who is significantly dyslexic and now is a thriving student at Woodward Academy. But he shows parents how to read with their children. And it's a strategy called Read, where in the first you read books over and over again to children. And this whole transfer of power from adult to child, this serve and return that Earl's talking about. The first time you read the book with your child, you push in the language of the events of the story. The second time you read the book, you push in the language of the characters' feelings and emotions. And the third time the book is read, who reads the book? The child. The child tells the story, not decoding, but telling the story. And now the child not only becomes the storyteller, but you have put that child in a position not only to tell the story, but decide the story for the rest of his life. And when we can give that power to parents instead of telling them how to sound out words with their children, when the parents are struggling themselves, as Frederick Douglass says, once you learn to read, you're forever free.
Right.
We're going to give children that gift if we help our parents understand that.
And one caveat, well, there's no caveat actually, but one observation I'd make is the American Academy of Pediatrics basically says screen time for children under 2 is absolutely the wrong thing. So you shouldn't expose children under 2 to screen time. But I do think we need to look around the country at how technology is being used, because there are many innovative things. I mentioned Khan Academy, which for those of you, does everybody already know that? Right. So online videos, 10 minutes in every subject, starting from beginning math all the way through, 3,500 videos. You can watch it, learn it, and then discuss it with your teacher or a peer or a sibling, right? That reaches 10 million children. So it's one of the largest schools in the world. There are other schools that are saying, you know what, I can't bring in the top chemist into my school. I can't bring in the top astronaut to my school. So I'm going to use technology to plug into NASA and have them virtually be in the class with a TA who's helping facilitate conversation. So getting access to high quality teachers is a real limitation to our children's success, and technology can certainly play a part in that.
Okay.
Yeah, my perspective on technology, it's both a tremendous opportunity and a great risk. As well. What we are seeing and observing in young boys is that they have spent so much time at such an early age in front of televisions, in front of computers, playing games, that they're starting to learn differently, and they're being wired a little bit differently. And so when we say put the game down, come to class and listen to a teacher, it doesn't work. This doesn't work that way. But we are trying to use technology in creative manners. In fact, I'm going off this evening to Las Vegas, not to gamble, but to look at a, no, true. I'm going to look at a virtual high school there. And on our testing now, it's computer adapted. We let the students move at their own pace, but part of the key is to be interactive and use the technology in an interactive way while keeping a really keen eye on socialization issues at the same time, because you can get lost in an electronic world, and you can, socialization is extremely important to children as well. And so again, I view it with mixed emotions. Next year, there's a law been passed that next fall, children can, in fact, and their parents, and I'm sure I have a set of parents who will demand to be able to take courses online, and we will have to pay for them whether we like it or not. And so we have to get out in front of that from a strategic perspective as well. And so there's a lot going on in the technology world, and it has both great risk as well as great opportunity, I believe.
On the early grade arena, how do we get and keep books in the hands of our little ones? What would you, Gail, what would you say is a great way to keep books then when we're hearing that there's risk as well as good use for technology, but for our early learners, and I see Scholastic looking at me like, yes, push books. And we're getting around the holiday time, and I know many of you are thinking, what is it that I can give a young one that's going to really make a difference? How is it that we keep books as a critical part of our young children to promote early literacy?
Well, I mean, one of the things, we're so lucky with an organization like Sheltering Arms, because part of being enrolled in Sheltering Arms Center, and Elaine, nod if I'm doing this right, kids get a book every month. And so we're actually building libraries. So think about a child who actually gets to spend 5 years in an early learning center at Sheltering Arms. They actually, the child and their family actually build a library of books. And not only do they take the book home, they're starting to do book clubs with parents about actually how do you do a read aloud? How do you successfully take this story and incorporate it in that child's daily life? I see one of our parents, Stephanie, raise your hand. Stephanie's our outreach, and she's really doing lots of work with parents about introducing them to reading and the joy of reading. So many of our parents actually are not successful readers, and so we really have to do lots around family literacy so that they actually, and hopefully we can build their library and their books too, so they actually can convey that love of books to their kids.
Can I just I've got to put in a plug with Robin First here.
I was just going to say, with Robin sitting right there with First Foundation.
Just couldn't have a better leader, but Robin's books are going, I mean, it really goes back to Earl's point. They are a way into the children's world. We keep saying that the brain develops 90% the first 5 years of life, but as Ami Klin says at the Marcus Center, a healthy brain develops in relationship to people, and an unhealthy brain develops in relationship to things. If we can think about a read aloud is nothing more than a structured activity of serve and return, leading to the children ending up being the storytellers. The whole day, you know, I just be honest with you, since I'm supposed to be passionate. Teachers of children who are 2 and 3 year olds, I was at a home the other night where a woman is dying, and she's in her last days, and a nurse was there to take care of her, and the nurse was wearing a nurse's smock with little bears on it. I went to visit a preschool the next day, and a teacher was wearing the same nurse's smock as the person who was caring for a woman headed for death. Going back to Earl's analogy of this serve and return, what is the clothing should every preschool teacher should be wearing to preschool every day? Can anybody know what it should be? Of course, it's a tennis outfit, right? Because that's what you're going to be doing all day long with the children. You're going to serve and return. David Dickinson calls it strive for 5. We keep serving aces at our kids with our commands instead of, David Dickinson says, if Earl's my teacher and he can have a 5 return of exchange and return of conversation with me as a 3-year-old, I am on a path to read to learn by 3rd grade. And instead, we've got our teachers caring for our children. And we've got the best early childhood commissioner in the country, and he is creating a system of education for children birth to 5. Let's get all on board and behind Commissioner Kate. So anyway. Sorry to go off.
I gave you permission at the beginning, so it's okay.
That was a blunder.
I want to do this. I just want to take a point of privilege yet again with our mention of Robin first and her life's work around getting books into children's hands, and we see Scholastic and Commissioner Cagle. This room has many early education and literacy supporters and folks with feet on the ground. I would just like to take a moment because I want our audience to see who you are so at the end of the program they can have a conversation with you. So at this time, very quickly, if you are involved in early education and early learning and literacy, would you please stand so we can see how to find you? Robin, yes, yes. Take a look around, ladies and gentlemen. These are folks that you want to talk to at the end of our program. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. My timekeeper is telling me we have 2 minutes left. So we're going to squeeze this in and make your answers as short as you possibly can. The achievement gap is a huge challenge in schools. What can we do to help parents be more aware of their role in helping ensure their children are ready for school and third grade reading success? Whoever wants to start.
Well, I'll just start and say, I worry about the achievement gap being a goal for us, because if you've watched how we're performing internationally, we're actually declining every year. And so if we just close the gap, we actually may find that we're so far behind, all of our kids are so far behind the rest of the country that we're not in a position to win. There are lots of strategies to raise achievement for all, and I know our panelists will share those.
You know, I really like to change the term from achievement gap to opportunity gap.
How about
that's
it?
What it's really about.
Yes, how about it?
And I would suspect that this audience is full of what I call demand parents, that you've actually demanded the very best for your kids. And that's actually what we've got to grow. We've actually got to grow a set of demand parents. I got to tell you, the good news is we're working in a very low-income set of neighborhoods, and trust me, we are growing. The superintendent knows we are growing a set of demand parents who are actually, he's having to deal with it, who are actually demanding that this opportunity gap actually that we really address it. That the kids, that these kids and their families actually have the opportunity to the highest quality early learning that continues all the way through elementary school. So let's really think about this. It's not an achievement gap, because these kids, as I told you, these little ones that have made 86% improvement, it's not about the kids. It's really the opportunities that they get exposed to.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Gail.
Yeah, let me second what Comer said about Commissioner Cagle, because we had traditional early learning programs that had really little or limited alignment with our K through 12 curriculum, and now we have created really a department of early learning. We've put in early learning specialists, numeracy specialists, literacy specialists, and we're focusing on parents and on training and enabling parents to be more demanding, to understand what's going on, and we're focusing on building relationships as well. And one last point that Earl made earlier also about your priorities. Money is, lack of money can be a barrier, but it shouldn't be an excuse. We were able to reduce our budget this year by tens of millions of dollars, yet we increased our language training, we increased our arts, and we've made, I think, a more equitable educational offering across this city. And again, it can be done if that is your focus.
I like that. It can be done. Thank you.
And quickly, David Dickinson at Vanderbilt says, for parents, here's this very simple test. If you walk into a preschool and you see children being told to be quiet and they're doing worksheets, leave. That's the academic version of saying that room in that place is just as toxic for your child as if lead paint were on the walls. And when our parents understand that, and things will change. Again, in our state with Commissioner Cagle, we are starting a quality rating system for early childhood programs. That is going to be huge, right?
Okay. Well, I see our time is up. Would you please help me in thanking our distinguished guests and panelists? Thank you so much.
Today's program just kind of summed it all up for me. I mean, they talked about the importance of the brain development in the early years from birth to age 3, but also how that has a tremendous impact on grade level reading by 3rd grade, which we know is a predictor of future school success.
Brain research tells us, of course, that children learn more easily. The younger they are, the networks tend to form. It's easier for them to acquire knowledge, particularly language knowledge. And so we would like to start as early as possible to start getting them numeracy and literacy skills. And by the time they get to kindergarten, they'll be ready for the Common Core. And importantly, by 3rd grade, that they're able to read and read well. Because prior to that, you're really learning how to read, but after 3rd grade, you're reading to learn.
Only 50% of our families in the United States read to their children every night. And for many of us, that's a special moment. It's that 15 minutes or 20 minutes where mom or dad shuts down everything, pulls you on their lap, and makes you feel so special. And that emotional connection and that social connection, that bond is so important. So we want our families to start reading more to their children. And if they don't know how to read, that's okay. These are babies. These are infants. They just want to feel you next to them, and you can make up stories together.
The big thing is that children, our gateway to full potential in this country is measured by whether you can read to learn or read on grade level by 3rd grade. Starting from birth, as adults, we need to make sure that children are having the type of interactions and transactions with adults that are going to assure that they have the kind of rock-solid foundation in place to meet that level of ability when they get to 3rd grade. And I loved what Earl Phelan said today about this idea that children's interaction needs to be serve and return. Adults in the presence of children need to be constantly stimulating language and critical thinking and self-reliance and self-advocacy with children. That's really not happening in most places you go.
Well, I think today's event really brings together the issues we have around early learning in this community and in our country, and how early learning programs are essential in raising citizens and raising adults that are well educated and able to achieve academically and in life later on.
I hope you've enjoyed this very special edition of Live United, focused on early childhood learning and education. Author Marian Wright Edelman once said, "Education is improving the lives of others and for leaving your community and world better than you found it." When we come together for important discussions like coffee and community issues breakfast, and then turn those discussions into action, we help improve the odds for our children from cradle to career. Find out how you can get involved by visiting unitedwayatlanta.org. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.